Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another fantastic episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. And joining me today is Dr. Kristy Taylor. How are you?
Hey, Bernadette, how are you doing? I'm so happy to be here today.
Awesome.
Very
I'm
excited.
doing good. My kids are home. It's summer break.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before the podcast. I've spent 20 years in education. Part of that has been teaching children. And so I completely understand. It's like we swap out the teachers we have from August through May, and then we give them back to the parents, and then parents are ready for them to come back in August, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know
About
what?
a month and a half to go.
Yeah, I agree. I have so much appreciation for teachers.
Yeah, it's definitely a passion. Now, most of my career has been teaching adult learners, but
Mhm.
in between time, there are times I taught elementary school. In fact, I just within the last year, I was working at a K through 4
Oh,
elementary
wow.
school.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome. Yeah. So where about are you tuning in from?
I am in the DMV area. So I am in the Germantown, Maryland area, but most people just say suburb of Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. And have you always lived there?
No, I'm originally from Mississippi, so shout out to Mississippi. And I've lived around places like Florida and as well as Texas.
That's awesome.
I've
That's
been in
really
DC
cool.
for about 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you to know more about you and the work that you're doing. Uh,
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw the title of your podcast. We just had a great conversation before coming on. So I look forward to sharing insights with your listeners today.
yeah, awesome. Awesome. So to start, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
So, who am I? I am Dr. Kristy Taylor, the social impact career coach. A lot of people often wonder, what is social impact? I am a career coach who specifically works with individuals and organizations in the social impact sector, meaning that these individuals are committed to making a difference in their community. They're committed to social and community engagement. Now, my niche specifically is healthcare, education, and nonprofits. But the social impact sector is a conglomerate. So when you think of anybody who is committed to making a difference, community activism, all of those folks, if you put us as a conglomerate, that would fall under social impact. So my motto is that I am the prescription for mission-driven individuals and organizations in the social impact sector. You'll notice that my business is, we spell it WORxK, WORxK Solutions, that RX represent we are the prescription for change, because we try to empower individuals and organizations to be that prescription for change within their communities. And we do that through career and resiliency coaching and workshops.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So what was your childhood like and what got you into the work that you're doing right now?
Well, you know what? I had a great childhood, full of family, full of friends. It was kind of like that. It was a bunch of kids on the street. So we grew up playing with each other, hanging out. It was a great childhood. One thing I'll always say, also always during my childhood, that I had an entrepreneurial mindset. It was either going to catch little Kristy doing one or two things. We're either going to be playing school or we're going to be playing store. So I was either going to be teaching you about something, right? Or I would be trying to sell something. So I always had an entrepreneurial spirit. My dad is an entrepreneur, my grandfather, my mom. So I come from a family of entrepreneurs. But I always, and this is the weirdest thing, I always had an interest in career development, which, if I say, hey, I love doing resumes, that can really sound like watching paint dry to some people. Like, like writing resumes. It's kind of like an author, right? So if you think about like how author takes, that is their form of creativity, where they're able to look at what they are doing on paper, or even an artist, they look at what they're doing on paper, they watch it take shape, and they watch it become this beautiful masterpiece. I love working with my clients coming into me saying, Dr. Taylor, I have no direction, or I'm a little confused about what's my next step. And we work through a process, and we put together a brand for them. What is their professional brand? We put that on paper, and I watch them, literally the transition in their mindset when they see that all of the things they really have accomplished laid out on paper, and the confidence that they have when they go out into the job market. And believe it or not, that is something I was interested in as early as my 20s. I remember my first little attempt at career coaching was called Career Itch. Now you can't even buy the domain anymore. I should have held on to it because it's super popular. But I had that domain, and I was like, I really want to help people navigate their careers and have a sense of purpose, because we're all born innately with a sense of purpose, with a some sense of belonging, something that we want to do or passionate about, but sometimes we just need a little help getting there and finding it. And so that's why I'm so blessed to be able to work in the social impact sector, where I'm not only helping people I know that people are coming to me with this passion and purpose to help and make a difference in their community. So it's really been something early on, entrepreneurship, the passion for helping and motivating people has really been a lifelong just passion, commitment of mine. I mean, you can see it in the way that I talk, and even how I engage in terms of teaching in the classroom.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I noticed your title is doctor. What do you practice something and tell us more about it?
I'm the resume doctor, but no. So you notice I said that in social impact, I try to really focus on the areas where I have a niche in, which is education, healthcare,
Mm,
and in the nonprofit sector. So if you're working in healthcare and education, typically that's going to be associated with some type of nonprofit. My doctorate is in global health. It's a doctorate of health science and global health. And then I also have a master's in health education, a master's in history, as well as a postmaster's in higher education. And so when you take all of that and put it together, right, I spent all of about 10 years working in a college doing community-based work in health education type initiatives. So a lot of, again, when you talk about passion to drive the customers and clients that I serve, it comes from the experiences that I've had, and it allows me to be able to niche my area down.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
What would you say sets you apart from other coaches that are doing similar work that you're doing?
Okay, so most coaches, when you hear the term career coach, I mean, it's very easy for me to go, I am a career coach. I am a HR career specialist. It's like general, and then you'll have your niche audience. But I
Mhm,
specifically really niche it down to social impact. I want to help the people that help the people, right? The
mm,
people that are committed to being a prescription for change. So my coaching is not for everybody because one, I know that folks are working, and we all know nurses. We know people who are working in healthcare, right?
mhm,
Teachers, even you as a mom, think about this, the things that you are committed to. Sometimes we have what is a next level of fatigue that is called passion fatigue.
yeah.
When we're committed to doing something, our emotions are involved in that. So you have fatigue, right? And you have burnout
Mhm,
that the average person experiences. But when your emotions are tied to this work that you're doing, it's a next level of burnout that I call passion fatigue. And
mhm,
so I take that, and because I have that understanding of those sectors, which typically within nonprofit education and healthcare, we're working with limited resources, limited amounts of people. It's nothing for my nursing clients or healthcare clients to come to me to say, oh, I'm working 12-hour shifts. I'm having to do doubles because we're short staffed.
mhm,
That level of burnout that they experience is really passion fatigue. They are committed to what they're doing. They came into this because they have a passion and a purpose. And so that is really what drives me as a coach and makes me a little bit different, because not only have I worked in these sectors and I understand it, I
mhm,
understand what that next level of burnout looks like. I understand how they're feeling. And so when we talk about building programming and workshops around that and coaching around that for individuals and organizations, it helps me to be really targeted, because I'm not a generalist in the sense that I'm coming from, oh, I just can write your resume. Also, when we talk about mindset, when my clients come to me, or if I'm working, just anybody that I'm talking to, right? And you're telling me that you feel like I can't get to that next level.
mhm,
If I write your resume and we're doing some coaching, or if you come to me for interview prep, I'm going to just ask you a series of questions to help you get off the hamster wheel, to help you move to the next level of in your career, in your life, because I want you to not only to do well in your job, I want you to do well in your life, right? I call that work-life integration. I use that instead of work-life balance, because the truth is we're
mhm.
really integrating this into our life, the part
Yeah.
of our life. So I just try to have a holistic perspective on what my clients may be experiencing versus just addressing like one tangible thing.
I love that you're going a bit deeper than a normal coach would, because often some of us, we focus on one category. And I think sometimes clients wants us to do more than they're telling us that they need.
Yeah, and the thing about coaching is that really the work is on the client. If it's
Mhm,
too far out of my, if it's too far out of my niche, most of the time with my clients, they'll come to me for a transactional type of service. Like I want my resume written or I need interview prep. But then we get into questioning dynamic where I'm saying, okay, you're telling me that you're stressed out or you don't feel that you're going to be able to get that job and move to the next level. It's through those series of deep digging and asking those questions with the client that we're able to kind of identify why they are on the hamster wheel, right? Now, in some cases, we might find that the client needs a next level of support, which is not what a coach can provide, but maybe more therapy. I provide therapeutic services as a coach, but I am not a therapist. So sometimes there are certain things where I have to be very clear. Here's what I'm going to be able to help you with. But I think that you would need some additional help in this area to address certain aspects. And I really want to tell coaches that we are here to support and empower clients, right? But the client has to be the one to be committed to make those changes in their life that they want to make to get off that hamster wheel.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. What are some of the blockage that someone may experience that is kind of restricting them to excel more in their career?
So I'm going to speak specifically about some of the things that I've seen. And one is mindset in terms of not believing that you deserve that seat at the table. I just did a workshop. It was called for Black women who consider walking out when a seat at the table is not enough. And we were talking about that. And we were talking about those dynamics in terms of race, but we were also talking about in terms of how we support each other as Black women, how we show up for each other. Right? Because it's not always just a race-based or gender thing. Sometimes it's about how we support each other. So mindset in terms of feeling like you don't deserve the money that you should be making, that you don't deserve that seat at the table, that you have so many responsibilities that you're replacing the action items that you should be doing with a list of responsibilities that you're using the responsibilities as an excuse to get to not achieve your level, or just sometimes just not even recognizing our own potential. Because I've done that with myself, right? I go into things and I'm thinking, a great example is my own experience of coming out of teaching. I make double, really more than that, almost 3 times what I was making as an educator doing what I do now in my full-time role, because I only ever saw myself as an educator. I didn't recognize that the skill set that I had in training and development and coaching could be used to support other people in other and different dynamic ways, right? So sometimes we put ourselves in this little tunnel and we don't want to just kind of be open-minded. So if I would say anything, open up your mindset, recognize that potential is unlimited. It is your mind that it's the roadblocks in your mind that's keeping you from reaching your next level. And then the last piece is just, us not really starting where we are. Like sometimes we feel like it has to be grandiose. I started a podcast last year. I did 22 episodes. I literally started that with just like we're doing now, right? And no, I don't have millions of listeners, but it's the willingness to start where I was, because someday I'll have millions of listeners, right? We have to just be willing to take the leap sometime of faith in ourselves and starting with what we have and where we are. We just did my speaker one sheet last night, and I was like, wow, this is really me on paper with all the stuff that we've done in the past year to launch this business and get it to where it needs to be. I originally launched my business in 2016, became well known as wrote a book, became well known as a healthcare resume writer. But then it was something different when I came back in 2022 and said, no, I'm going to be the prescription for change. We're going to really support a greater audience. And it's taken some time to get there. And I think, it's crazy to have come back 2 years ago and then to do all of this work. And then I work with coaches and they go, Kristy, this is year 0 for the business. And I'm like, oh my God, year 0. With all of the work that we've done, then what is year 1 gonna look like? You know what I mean? But just putting in the work and being open-minded to making transition and change. So I think a lot of times we just get kind of hung up on the fact that we don't even realize our own potential, and we think we got to have some grandiose start. But we can just start where we are and use what we have.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? It's people literally that have just opened up their phone, started talking and making YouTube videos, and now got millions of followers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. You can
Mhm.
interview me instead. I love everything you're sharing. There's so much depth and it's rich. You know, it's not dry information that you're giving. You've lived those experiences and you get to do it as a career and teach other people. And I can tell you get so much happiness and joy from doing it. You know,
Yeah, because I
sometimes,
just think that
yeah, go
people,
ahead.
yeah, I just think that people is like it's like a bottle of Coke, right? It's like you see that bottle of Coke and it's thirsty, you want it, but then you shake up a bottle of Coke and then you take the top off and it explodes. I remember doing that experiment with some of my kids. We put the Mentos in the Coke bottle and then it explodes, and I see the excitement on their face, right? That's kind of how I get, seeing people just
Mhm.
recognize that the only limitation to your potential is you.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Speaking of potential, what does potential mean to you?
It is your ability to achieve your goals, to maximize use of the resources that are available to you, for
Mhm.
you to be able to understand um, that possibility is unlimited as long as you believe in your mind and your heart that it's unlimited, right? But again, I think so many of us make the mistake of saying, I got to be grandioso or start. I got to buy $3,000 worth of podcast equipment to start the podcast. I have to
Mhm. Yeah.
um, pay. I mean, and I'm a college professor. I was many years. I got to pay $100,000 to go to this college. I'm like, I went to community college. I
Mhm.
went to school online when it was not even popular. I was to get and piecemeal my degrees together. But then fast forward, all these years later, I have had an opportunity to study at Harvard, teach on the campus of Yale. And I'm like, somebody who was looking at me like this,
Mm.
then you start out community college. This, like, those are not the things that people would expect. But it's tenacity.
Mhm.
It's your tenacity to really just move forward. I just started listening to Myron Golden a lot. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a Christian-based business coach. And
Mhm.
he talks a lot about working for you. It's
Mhm.
either working on you or working for you, right? And so
Mhm.
sometimes, there's an old gospel song that made the work that I do speak for me. And I like to replace that with my work, with the business name work. Because your work is either working for you or on you. And that is so true. Like, you might not feel like if I'm doing something or executing something that I'm getting a return on it, but you're either going to learn from it
Mhm.
or you're going to, or grow from it, in terms of, like, either way you're going to grow, right? But if my YouTube channel has not blown up, which it has not, I'm either going to do the research to learn why is this not working,
Mhm.
or I'm gonna keep pushing out videos and nobody's watching, knowing that I should have great information to share. And so in that case, it's working on me because I'm wasting my time not trying to really learn how to engage my audience better. And so I just say that's for anything that we do, right? It's
Mhm.
working for you or it's working on you.
Yeah,
But the
yeah,
whole goal is for you to be able to continue to learn. That's what potential is. It
yeah.
is that space where you are seeking to really maximize efforts to grow to reach your
Mhm.
next level.
Mhm. Oh, I love that. Yeah, yeah. I also think as of potential, you know, like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah.
And I think all of us are phoenixes. And some of us have risen, some of us know we should, but we haven't. We're just waiting for what? I always ask, you know?
Right. This you remember the movie Color Purple? She said, "This life be over soon. Heaven lasts always." Well, what are you gonna do in this life? Right? You
Yeah.
still here every day. If
Mhm.
failure is the tuition that we pay for success. I
Mhm.
heard Les Brown say this. So I repeat that all the time. Just
Yeah.
jump. Steve Harvey got a book called Jump. Just jump. Now don't jump into foolishness. Like, don't jump in and get a $1 million loan just because you can get it, right?
Yeah.
But if you know that there's something that you want to do,
Mhm.
go for it, plan strategically, look at what's available and just do it.
Yeah.
The first season of my podcast, we were we were talking. I just did a podcast interview the other day,
Mhm.
and the young lady used, like, literally the same platform that I used. And I'm like, we came on, and it was like colors flashing. She had a background.
Yeah.
like, you can do all of this with this particular podcast platform. She was like, yeah. So my assistant and I was talking, we were so impressed. We were like, okay, when we come back for season 2 of our podcast, we're gonna get better. We're gonna do better on the lighting. We're gonna do a little bit more flash, glitter, glitz, glimmer, right? Because we want to keep getting better in terms of how we engage and how we focus and how we support and show up for our audience. So it just gets better over time. You evolve. And don't be afraid to do that. I love what you said about the rising phoenix. It's so true.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how's podcasting treating you, but you've shared some stuff that tells us it's good. It's going good.
Yeah, I mean, we're always able to find guests. I got more guests than what I need. We do a great job of, we've learned the art of production between, the platform as well as strategic use of Canva for to develop our marketing material. I mean, but this is just like, we're using what we have. We start out with just like a free platform, and then just using Canva, the free version. Then we went to the paid version, and I'm thinking people just really don't understand, like, if you really want something, you can do it. And my podcast started, clearly it was literally by mistake. Like, okay, it wasn't by mistake, but it was just like, I said in November of last year, I was like, I want to speak more. I'm gonna get into that. This was like November, so found a speaking opportunity. That did that opportunity. Then the second opportunity came along, and you do these events and you have to market the event. So I was like, okay, I was responsible for my share of the marketing for an event. So I just was like, I'm gonna interview some people who work in education so we can launch this event. Well, the lady saw me, who was hosting the event. She saw me soliciting for people to interview. I didn't even have in my head that I was about to start a podcast. I said I was going to do it in 2024, but she was like, she saw me solicit. She was like, hey, I'll come on and do a live with you, because that's all I was trying to do, just do a live.
Yeah.
And we did that live, and she stayed on for like 30 minutes after that, mentoring me, like, okay, if you want to start a podcast, get your lighting, get this, get that. And I'm like, okay. And then within like 2 weeks, I had somebody else scheduled. And then from November to April of this year, we did 22 episodes of the podcast.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's really
cool. And
cool.
sometimes it was horrible. You come on, you got your little issues with the sound, it
Yeah.
was a learning thing. Sometimes it would go out in the middle, but guys, you just cannot be afraid to start.
Yeah.
That was the point, right? We just jumped, and we're going to keep getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I get so many interviews, people who want to come on the podcast. I tell people I do 9 to 10 interviews a week.
Wow.
A week. Imagine doing that for 2-3 months. If you do the math, that's a lot. So I don't know what I'm doing right, but people love it. And I love people for wanting to come on the podcast.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, people like you worry about, am I going to be able to find guests? It's always people writing books, it's coaches, there's people out here who want the platform, who want to share their stories, right? It's just, you got to just take the leap. So we learned this season that we will not be doing 22 episodes again. We're going to come back in season 2 with the lights and glitz and glamour, a little bit better. And then we'll be more focused on, now that we really have the branding down for WORxK Solutions as being the prescription for change, right? Supporting mission-driven individual organizations. We're going to have more focused conversations around that. But I mean, in that first season, I said, okay, we're going to do a podcast blitz in February. We interviewed all Black professionals. Then in March, we interviewed all women professionals, diverse groups. So we, from November to, like I said, April, we were just, anybody and everybody who wanted to come home had a great message to share. We called it the CareerCoachRx podcast, and that's another thing, because we had to change the name to align with our branding, right? But we had a great time doing it, and you meet so many people, and those same people start inviting you back to be on their podcast and these summits and events. So it's really like a community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Are there some projects that you're working on right now?
Yeah, so we are going to be working on this quarter. We're doing working on launching an incubator for social impact professionals, where we bring you in. It's kind of like a little mini boot camp, bring you in to help you get your career to the next level. Our accelerator program, the event that I did with the I just hosted a workshop for African American women. Again, a seat at the table, because when you have that seat at the table, and when a seat at the table is not enough because the name is so long for that workshop. But that was really well received.
Yeah.
And it was just an intimate workshop. So I'm going to try to do that again. What I
Mhm.
have coming up most immediately is we are dropping some books. My framework, Introduction to the Rational Motor Behavior Therapy Framework, that book is dropping. That really shows the research behind what I do. I have a project with my sister that I'm dropping called Colorful Careers in Healthcare. Let me talk about that for a second, because this is one of those things we did on faith, right? My sister is a physical therapist. Shout out to Dr. Kristy Taylor. And I am a health scientist. And what we wanted to do was a collab where we know that in the healthcare industry, there's a shortage of Black professionals. We know that our children don't always get to see people who look like them. And one of the biggest challenges in the Black community is self-advocacy when it comes to healthcare, right? Being able to speak up, really understand what's going on. So we put together this book. We produced ourselves 42 educational videos for this activity book for kids. We say, see it, say it, write it. The kids will have an opportunity to scan a QR code, takes them to the video, the pictures in the book. There's diverse characters in the book. It's a coloring book. It's diverse characters in the book. And even down to their hair. If the hair wasn't right on the sisters, we sent it back to the illustrator. So every detail, we wanted to make sure we got everything from afros to braids, but there is representation in this activity guide that we have coming out for children to teach them and introduce them to careers in healthcare, because that was just a passion project that we have. And so that'll come out within the next 2 weeks, along with my the introduction to my framework. And then I'm also in the DC area, so I'll be doing a lot of vending. And I'm starting the process of vending and connecting with organizations. And then the final event, actually here, is I'm going to be August 10th. I have a workshop called CareerCoachRx, because one of my initiatives is part of the faith-based approach. As part of the social impact, is to introduce a faith-based approach to career exploration and career development. So we're going to be doing that workshop. The information is on Eventbrite. The CareerCoachRx workshop, we're just going to be really taking you through the process of identifying that innate purpose within you and having a purpose-driven career and passion. So yeah, we got a lot of different dynamics going on within WORxK Solutions.
That's awesome.
Oh,
You guys are
and I will
busy.
say we're launching our Career Myths in July. We actually collected videos from different coaches and resources. And so all month long, we're going to be sharing positive videos and resources from coaches to help you get to your next level, unleash your potential, or identify your passion, right? And we're going to be doing that all month long. So we got a couple of different things going on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. You guys are very busy.
Yeah, we are.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Can you tell us more about the framework that you use?
The Rational Motor Behavior Therapy Framework. Yeah. So as a career coach, I mentioned that I try to be holistic in my approach. So when you hear me say the framework, a lot of that sometimes is more applicable to businesses. So I'll speak in, how it looks for business and individual organizations. It really started with me working with individuals, because again, when we talk about unleashing potential, my clients, they come to me with these roadblocks, and I'm always like, hey, you got to get off this hamster wheel. Like, you know what I mean? It's not going to work if you're not going to be able to move forward until you get off this hamster wheel. And so what rational emotive behavioral therapy is, it is a cognitive technique that allows an individual to identify the root cause of irrational beliefs. Why is it that I'm thinking this way? And then when we identify the root cause of it, we identify the belief, we identify the root cause, we challenge that belief, and then we start to replace that belief with a more realistic, positive way of thinking, right? And that is how we move forward. So you take that and you move that into a framework. I'm introducing a framework for DEIA, not so much as to build DEIA programs within diversity, equity, inclusion programs, but it can be used to build that, but as a change management model. We're in the middle of a political climate where people really hate to say diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as somebody who was like, okay, I'm not going to enter that chat, even though I taught this for many years and developed curriculum around it, I just felt like now it's the time for me to enter the chat. because if somebody doesn't enter the chat, then, you know, things are going to keep moving the way that they are moving. And I think diversity, equity, inclusion, well, I don't think I know because I did the research. This is one of like the most difficult conversations for people to have. Like, it's very easy to get on a DEIA council and just make a whole lot of positive gestures, like, you know, we want equality and equity, but we really have to get to the root cause of why people think the way that they think. In work environment, that is not meant to be therapy. But if you want to change something in your organization, you really have to use those same techniques that I would use with my clients. So this is why I developed this framework, because if we can have conversations around DEI and get into the root cause of why people think, how they think, unconscious bias, dealing with those, we can literally use that for any type of change management model within an organization to create resilient organizations. Because if you are a leader and you're talking about unleashing the potential within your organization, if you can have difficult conversations related to diversity, equity, inclusion, you can literally almost move the needle on anything. Because when the next project comes along that even doesn't have anything to even do with DEI, it might just be a change initiative, and you start getting pushback from people that work for you, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to seek to understand the root cause of what is the irrational belief within my organization that makes my team feel like this is not going to be something that's achievable. Right? So we're going to address the irrational beliefs within organizational culture that mitigates or prohibits and limits change. We address those bottlenecks. That's what that framework really focuses on. So for individuals, I use it more of a thought process individually, right? But for organizations, we look at organizational resiliency and how is the irrational beliefs within organizational culture impacting your organization's ability to move forward. And again, I center it around DEIA because I know that if you can, as a leader, if you can facilitate those types of conversations, why would you, as a mission-driven organization, somebody who's committed to social impact, not want to have a conversation around race and equity and inclusion, right?
Okay. I love that. Thank you for sharing. I love the work you're doing, and it needs to happen. And sometimes we just ignore the issue. We don't do much about it.
I posted a post this morning because I don't really get into politics, but I think as a historian and an educator, I think sometimes I do need to make some statements. Like right now, the trend is Black jobs because of the debate, you know, and people are making jokes when you have somebody just makes the assumption that, oh, well, you have a group of people taking Black jobs. My question is, I can enter the chat and go, you know, no, I'm a doctor. I don't have what this stereotypical what's being a Black job, right? No, I work a good job, you know, whatever. But, and I see some people making jokes like, oh, you know, Black people, we got jobs like, oh, spades coordinator, you know, like making jokes about it. But I think as a collective, like when we look at the historic around this occupational, let me get the exact word that I have for it, because I'm really passionate about this, especially as somebody who works in workforce development. When we look historically about equity, right? And we look at where we are 160 years after the end of slavery, and we look at information from the Department of Labor statistics. I guess my question is, I said occupational segregation. That's the word that I use, right? When we look at that, if we look at it from a context, why are we competing for the bottom? Like when you look statistically, we still do occupy. There is honor in work, but it really shouldn't be a joke, right? To say, why are we still competing for some of these jobs economically and socially 160 years after? We've been here 400 years, 160 years later, we're still doing some of the same jobs that our ancestors were doing, taking low pay. And so, you know what I mean? I would encourage it. And that's what I mean when we talk about unleashing potential. You know, we have to recognize, even from a cultural aspect, the potential that we do have. And so really the concept is not, it's an insult, but it's also not a joke, because we need to look at occupational segregation as something that needs to be really taken seriously. This gap that exists, right? And these disparities.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you. And I honor you for talking about it. And I know there are many other powerhouse women, men, people that are talking about those topics. And I think we need to continue to talk about it. It's
Mhm.
not to talk about once or twice or during a specific anniversary or event. It's to talk about it over and over and over and to show empathy, to show up for what we know we can do, to
Yeah.
not limit someone's potential based on how they look, because I believe everybody has potential regardless of how they look, and they can teach others. I'm always willing to learn from other people, and that's a secret weapon, is to be humble.
Yeah, when we had our workshop the other day, I was talking to a group of women, and I said, okay, so even though we titled this long title about African American women a seat at the table, you
Mhm.
know, are you open to mentorship from diverse groups of people? Because at the end of the day, it's about the people who can really champion you in that room, who can really speak on the work that you do. And that has nothing to do with race or anything like that. That is really the relationships that you've built,
Yeah.
and the connections that you have made. And when you need somebody to champion you, none of that stuff matters. But
Mhm.
I thought I would just bring that up because when we talk about unleashing potential as a culture, as a group of people, we
Yeah.
have this discussion going on right now, and I'm just like, it's really not a joke. Yeah,
Mm.
that was a perspective, but we really should collectively, we know that in truth, if you analyze it, there is a disparity that does exist, and we really should be asking ourselves the question from a workforce development standpoint: why are we still competing at the bottom
Mhm.
160 years later?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on as we wrap up?
No, I think that, when we talk about unleashing your potential, if I could give, that same advice is just, if you
Mhm.
have a passion or goal for something, be willing to start where you are. The people that, when we do these podcasts, when we're hosting events, sometimes 10 people show up, sometimes 5 people show up, sometimes 100 people show up.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is that we showed up. And the biggest thing that you can do when you talk about unleashing potential is showing up for yourself.
Mhm.
And you do the work, and it's going to pay off. So
Yeah.
you do the work for your career, you do the work for your whatever it is that you want to be and go as an entrepreneur. You do
Mhm.
the work, it's going to pay off. And just know that each time you're doing the work, you're going to learn something from it.
Mhm. I love that. Thank you. I have two questions for you as we wrap up. The first
Okay.
one is, what is the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life for me, I read my life literally like it's an obituary, right? I always wake up with what is the legacy that I want to leave. And I think right now I'm living in that moment. If I were to leave here today, people say she was a good person. She was loving, she was kind, right? And she made a difference in her community. So, those are the things that really stand out to me in regards to that.
Hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Last question. Where can people find you and work with you?
So I am available on WORxSolutions.com. That is WORxK Solutions.com. TikTok, we have about 4,600 people following us there. We're giving out career advice all the time across all platforms at WORxSolutions.com. I mean, Work Solutions, or you can just simply Google Dr. Kristy Taylor. It's the Kristy. That's how you spell my name. And you'll find me easily on the internet, right? I'm readily available.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Christie, thank you so much for your time and thank you for all you do. Keep shining. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
You're welcome.